Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Hey, everyone.
So today we are wading into some pretty heavy waters. We're looking at a research document from a collection called the Agape Archive,
Right.
specifically The Essence of Spiritual Warfare. And I have to say, when I first saw that title, I kind of braced myself for ghost stories, you know?
Yeah, that's the standard reaction.
Yeah.
When you hear spiritual warfare, you immediately think of, like, Hollywood horror movies.
Right, The Exorcist, things
Sure.
bumping in the night.
But looking through this source material, that's not really what we're dealing with at all.
No, not at all. But, before we even get there, I think we have to address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Our listeners, they follow the Agape Archive, and it's usually all about the unconditional love of God. It's warm, it's comforting stuff. And here we are asking, why did angels fall and become demons? It feels a bit off-brand, doesn't it?
It does seem unexpected, yeah. I'm sure some people are wondering, why is the Agape Archive focusing on such dark subjects? I mean, we covered hell last time, now demons. It's a fair question.
It is. But the source makes this incredible point right at the start. It says that to truly, deeply comprehend the magnitude of God's agape love, we have to first understand the nature of the massive spiritual battle taking place in the unseen realm.
Exactly. It's all about contrast. Only when you grasp this big picture, the reality of the darkness, can you clearly see just how fierce and overwhelming God's love for us actually is.
So you can't appreciate the rescue if you don't understand the trap.
That's it. So by identifying the reality of darkness and the essence of this spiritual war, we can truly discover the value of the agape love that pierced right through it.
And that's the mission today. This isn't just, for curiosity's sake. It's essential to illuminating the value of agape.
Well said.
All right, then let's dive into the chilling details. How does an angel become the devil? And more importantly, why does the source describe this not as a monster movie, but as a clash of two opposing worldviews?
That is the core idea we need to unpack. The document identifies the axis of this whole battle, not just as good versus evil in a simple sense, but as a clash between conditional causality and unconditional agape.
Conditional causality. Wow. That sounds more like a philosophy lecture than a war.
It is philosophical, and that's what makes it so terrifying. The enemy isn't just trying to scare you, he's trying to out-argue God.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning then, the fall. The source material really challenges the way I've always pictured Lucifer.
How so?
I usually imagine this, a rebellious teenager who just wants to sit in the dad's chair, pure raw power hunger, I want to be the boss.
Right.
But the research, it paints a much more sophisticated picture. It calls the fall an ideological rejection of God's governing principle.
Precisely. It wasn't just wrong ambition, it was a crisis of rationality. The source points out that Lucifer was a light worker. We need to pause on that for a second.
Okay.
Angels are described as the most brilliant beings, existing in this functional, service-based relationship with God. They were the elite. They were made of light.
Right. They're functional, brilliant, shining. And then God introduces something else, something that, frankly, doesn't look very impressive next to an angel.
The dirt.
The dirt. I love how the source puts this. It distinguishes between the angels made of light and humans made of soil. And the catalyst for this entire cosmic war wasn't a battle for a throne. It was jealousy over the dirt.
It connects back to this concept of the covenantal child. The research explains that God took this lowly, soilless, breathed his own life into it, and called it his child. He gave humans a status that the angels, for all their brilliance, didn't have in the same way.
That brings up such a human feeling, actually. Imagine you're the perfect employee. You've been there for eons. You're made of light. You've never made a mistake. And then the boss brings in this mud pie and says, "This is my child. Serve him."
That's the spark right there, the angelic grievance. The source suggests you can almost hear the indignation in Lucifer's voice. Why do we, the brilliant light, have to serve this worthless dirt?
To him, it just didn't make sense. It wasn't just annoying. It was wrong.
And that brings us to the core accusation. To Satan, God's agape, this unconditional love for humans, looked like irrational favoritism. It disrupted the entire cosmic order. It was, in his eyes, completely unfair.
And this is where we get to that key insight of the whole document. Satan isn't running around trying to be evil just for the sake of being evil.
No, he's trying to be rational, and the source uses this amazing analogy of a calculator.
Yes, the calculator of retribution. I found this absolutely fascinating. So explain how this calculator works in his worldview.
It's this system of conditional causality. It's a logic that says value equals merit. You get what you pay for.
Simple enough.
If you are valuable and good like light, you are loved and honored. If you are bad or worthless like dirt, you should be discarded.
Which, to be honest, is how most of our human society works, isn't it? If I don't pay my mortgage, I lose my house. If I don't work, I don't eat. It feels logical.
It feels intensely logical, and that's the trap. The analysis in the source notes that Satan believed his worldview was more just and more rational than God's. He saw himself as the defender of justice.
So he's looking at God and saying,
He's saying, you are handing out illegal love to unworthy dirt. You are breaking the fundamental rules of value.
that is a massive shift in perspective. He's not the Joker wanting chaos. He's the ultimate bureaucrat wanting strict adherence to the rules.
That's it. He wants to prove that his retribution model is superior to God's unconditional agape.
So the whole spiritual war is defined right there. Satan is trying to prove God is unjust for loving sinners.
He wants to impeach God on the grounds of illegal love.
So if this is a courtroom drama, a cosmic debate, where do we fit in? Because it feels like humanity is just caught in the crossfire.
We are more than just bystanders. The source describes humans as the hostages or the test subjects.
The test subjects.
Satan tempts humans not just to ruin them, but to prove God wrong. Every single time a human fails, every time we act like dirt, Satan can point to his calculator and say,
See, they're broken, they're worthless, they deserve to be discarded. If you keep loving them, God, you are unjust.
It's like he's gathering data for a lawsuit. Exhibit A, the human lied. Exhibit B, the human stole. His whole argument is, if you are a just God, you must discard the dirt.
Wow. That brings us to the case study the research highlights. It's a story most of us know, but when you view it through this lens of causality versus agape, it completely changes. The woman caught in adultery in John 8.
This is the battlefield in miniature. You have the scribes who are acting as agents of this retribution worldview, and they drag this woman before Jesus.
And the trap is, it's just vicious. They literally throw her in the dirt, which is fitting, and they ask Jesus, the law says stone her. What do you say?
And here are the two options Satan is presenting. In his mind, both lead to a defeat for Jesus. Option A, Jesus says, stone her.
Okay, so if he says that, he follows the law of retribution. He follows the calculator.
Exactly. But if he does that, his entire message of being the friend of sinners, the bringer of agape, is proven to be a lie. He becomes just another enforcement agent of that cold, hard logic.
He saves his reputation as a lawkeeper, but he loses his entire mission of love.
Right. So option A is out. What about option B?
Option B, Jesus says, let her go, which is what we all want him to say.
Emotionally, yes. But legally, it's a total disaster. If he just says, let her go without any grounds, he ignores the sin, he breaks the law of justice.
Which, in Satan's eyes, would prove that God is unjust, that he ignores his own rules, and that destroys God's authority as a righteous judge.
It's a perfect trap. If he loves her, he's unjust. If he judges her, he's unloving.
And what really strikes me looking at the source is the cruelty of it. That woman wasn't a person to them at all. She was a tool, a prop.
A pawn in the argument.
They didn't care about her morality. They just wanted to use her sin to break Jesus's logic.
The taunt is basically, I caught this dirt acting like dirt. Now, God, are you going to break your own rules to save it?
But then, the victory. Jesus just shatters the calculator.
He does. He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first. It's brilliant. He turns the calculator right back on the accusers.
He reminds them that under that strict law of retribution, they're also in debt.
But there's a deeper layer here that the source points out. It wasn't just a clever word trick to get them to leave. No. The source calls this the theological twist. Jesus upheld justice not by stoning her then and there, but by committing to take that punishment himself.
Wait, unpack that for me, because he tells her, go and sin no more. He lets her go.
He lets her go physically. But the debt of her sin, the causality of it, that didn't just vanish. Someone had to pay it. Jesus could legally release her because he knew he was walking toward the cross to pay the causality debt she owed. He satisfied both love and justice.
That is the ultimate aha moment. The cross wasn't just a sad event. It was the solution to the math problem Satan created.
He satisfied the calculator by feeding it his own life.
It's fascinating to see how historical heavyweights viewed this dynamic. The source quotes C.S. Lewis, who called Satan a comparative rebel.
I love that phrase, comparative rebel.
What does that mean exactly?
It means he was obsessed with the ranking light versus dirt. He couldn't stand that the cosmic ranking was being ignored by love. He operates on status. God operates on grace. Those two operating systems just can't coexist.
And then there's Martin Luther calling Satan the ultimate legalist. That's such a flip. We usually think of Satan as the lawbreaker.
But Luther says no. He's the law enforcer who wants to use the law to crush love. And it makes sense, doesn't it? If you want to destroy someone's spirit, you don't just beat them up. You quote the rule book at them. You show them exactly where they failed.
That's what the enemy does.
And Jonathan Edwards adds another layer. He noted that Satan has incredible intelligence, but zero sense of love.
Right. So he could calculate the merit, the sin, the punishment. He's like a supercomputer of retribution.
But he couldn't calculate the variable of the cross. It was a variable that just didn't exist in his world. The idea that the judge would die for the criminal, it's completely irrational. It broke his algorithm.
So Anselm saw him as a strategist attacking God's legal standing. It really creates this picture of a cold, high IQ prosecutor versus a passionate, self-sacrificing father.
That is the single match. That is the war. It is Satan's conditional retribution versus God's unconditional agape.
Okay, so let's look at the final score. The source calls this a single match war. How was the winning move actually played?
The winning move was the incarnation and the crucifixion. See, God didn't just wave a magic wand from heaven and say, I forgive you, because that would have been illegal in the court of causality.
He had to enter the system.
He had to enter the dirt. He became dirt. He became human. And he took the full force of the retribution on his own body. He allowed the calculator to run its entire equation on him. They paid the bill. He paid the bill so that he could legally offer agape. He satisfied the demands of the calculator so that he could then smash it.
And this leads us to the current reality. If the bill is paid, why does it still feel like such a struggle? The source says the war continues as a war of voices.
Yes. For you listening right now, this is where it hits home. The war isn't happening up in the clouds. It's happening in your mind. The voice of Satan is the voice of causality.
I think we all know that voice.
It says, look at your conditions. You don't deserve it. Calculate your worth. You failed. You yelled at your kids. You cheated on your diet. You lied. Therefore, you are unlovable.
And it sounds so true because the facts are usually right. We did fail.
The facts are right, but the conclusion is wrong. That's the trick. The voice of God doesn't dispute the facts. The voice of God says, I know the calculation. I paid it. Despite that, I love you. It's the triumph of despite over because. Satan says, I hate you because of what you did. God says, I love you despite what you did.
Wow. Despite that, I love you. That really changes how you view those negative thoughts, doesn't it? It's not just low self-esteem. It's an old defeated logic trying to claw its way back in.
Exactly. And you can't appreciate the rescue if you don't understand the trap. When you realize that the enemy is just a bitter accountant trying to enforce a debt that's already been paid, his accusations start to lose their power.
Okay, let's just unpack the implications of that for a second before we wrap up.
Yeah.
If we stop seeing spiritual warfare as just scary things in the dark and start seeing it as this battle of logic versus love, how does that change our daily walk?
It means that every time we accept unconditional love, we are engaging in spiritual warfare.
That is a huge statement. Accepting love is warfare.
Yes. Every time you refuse to condemn yourself or others based on merit, you are siding with God against the accuser. When you say, I am not defined by my failures, you are breaking the calculator. You are actively participating in the victory of agape over causality.
That is so powerful. It turns self-grace into a weapon against the darkness.
After hearing this today, I truly understand why we needed to explore these darker themes. The fact that the worldview of retribution or causality from Satan is what constantly clashes with God's unconditional agape really clarifies the essence of spiritual warfare for me.
Precisely. It's not about fear, it's about the fundamentals of reality. Now that we understand this massive background, the destination we need to explore next appears even more clearly.
Yeah, we've seen the problem. Now we need to see the solution in high definition. For our listeners' sake, could you give us a little spoiler for next week?
Of course. Since we've confirmed the core of the spiritual battle today, the axis between conditional retribution and unconditional agape, next week we're diving deep into the source itself, the love of God. We're going to try and reveal the reality of that overwhelming, passionate love that completely shattered Satan's meticulous calculator.
So the true essence of agape is about to unfold. Since we've built such a solid foundation today, I'm even more excited for next week. It's like we've cleared the rubble so we can see the foundation.
Yes, you can certainly look forward to it. If today's deep dive helped your spiritual growth, if it helped you silence that internal calculator, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and set your notifications. It really helps us get this message out.
And if you have any questions about today's content or want to share your own reflections, maybe about how that voice of retribution shows up in your life, please leave a comment. We do make sure to read them all and connect with you.
We will return next time with a deeper and more passionate story of agape love. Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.
Thank you.